Welcome to 360 Degree with Dr. Marie Asher Baptiste, sponsored by American Caribbean Chamber of Commerce. We are so delighted tonight to have this special episode on economic shift before, during, post COVID-19 pandemic and Malawi. Tonight it is especially a very welcome, honorable. So Gary, please tell us a little bit about yourself before we go right into the question. Welcome again, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baptiste.
Yes.
I'm delighted and very, very happy to be with you, actually to share with you some of the insights of what Malawi is actually doing currently, but also how they are actually fighting the pandemic. My name is Edward Jacobe Sawargenra. I'm the Malawi ambassador to the United States, but also represent Canada and Mexico on a residential basis. I actually handed my papers of credence to the President of the US in September 2016, and in 2017 I handed my papers to the Governor General of Canada. So that's briefly who I am. But before coming to US, I was also Malawi ambassador to Brazil in South America. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us some great background information, Ambassador. It is an awesome pleasure to have you on this show. So we're going to move right along into our show. We know that the pandemic has been a crisis all over the world. And we know that with the nation that has the great infrastructure, they are pulling through and still trying to figure out how to come out with this pandemic in a positive notion. Now, my question to you tonight, what is the current situation in Malawi due to this COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you so much. Up until 2nd April 2020, Malawi had no case of coronavirus. The first incident was actually discovered or found on 2nd April, and there were 3 cases at that time. Now, from April to today, 16th May 2020, as I'm talking now, there are 65 confirmed cases in Malawi, 35 active cases, 24 have recovered, and we have experienced 3 deaths. The total number of tests conducted so far as of today is 1,762. I would say that all the cases are asymptomatic and stable. The patients, some are currently in their respective homes on quarantine, and others are in institutional quarantine and under management of Ministry of Health. So the situation is not there or here. And what I would also say is that possibly the numbers, they might appear to be on the lower side because we have few testing in the centers. As I said, the tests that we have conducted are out of 18 million. It's only 1,762 since the coronavirus was declared an emergency in our country.
Wow, that is wow. For the numbers that you have is pretty small, but I noticed that we have 18, like you said, 18 million people has the population of Malawi, and only 1,000 tests has been during that time. What is the government doing for precautionary measure in continue to test the rest of the population, because I believe what one of the CDC recommendation is to use their precautionary measures and also to have more testing done.
Thank you so much. The government of Malawi, through the East Ministry of Health, is working hard to increase the number of testing centers to reduce the turnaround time of the samples. But they have also put in place some of the precautionary measures, which I would call preventative guidelines, to help reduce the spread of the coronavirus in the country. Some of these guidelines are the usual one, like the regular hand washing, the social distancing, avoiding handshakes and hugs, observance of self-quarantine rules, especially those who are coming into the country, returned residents, as well as those coming to visit Malawi. They're asked to actually observe self-quarantine rules, avoiding overcrowded places. Recently, Malawi government has actually asked the population, the Malawians, that at any gathering, public gathering, they should not exceed 50 people, be it at the wedding, be it at the whatever, meetings or funerals. Although in certain situations, especially in rural areas, it is quite difficult to actually observe, especially the overcrowding. But the government of Malawi is actually supervising this on public transport. They're making sure that appropriate numbers of passengers are seated in the passenger vehicles. So, as I said, there are very few testing centers. We have in total 9 testing centers across the country. The country it has 3 regions, and there are, I think, out of the 9, we have 2 in northern region, 3 in central region, and the remaining are in southern region, which is the most populous region in the country. So the government of Malawi is trying its best to make sure that these guidelines are observed, are followed as much as possible. They have actually requested the security services to actually oversee that people are adhering to these guidelines.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Well said. I see that, with being the lack of infrastructure with all the third world countries, one of the challenges that faces is the citizens in the countryside or in the rural area are not preview or have access to this information. What is being done to make sure that those that stays in the village or that stays in the countryside actually have a chance to hear and know what they need to do? Because with the lack of infrastructure, we face the lack of having electricity that will give that on how to protect from this global pandemic. What is being done with the government to make sure everybody is an equal opportunity to know what's going on and how they need to protect themselves from this, silent killer, as President Trump so namely called it?
Thank you. Government is using all available infrastructure to ensure that there is a full public awareness especially to the people in the remote areas, the rural citizens. Government is using radios, television. There are also flyers, leaflets that are actually distributed across the country, but also there are non-government organizations who are operating in various, rural and remote areas, and they are also sending the messages. They have vans with the loudspeakers. They actually go around the countryside to make announcements. All the healthy, centers in the remote areas, they are carrying out the awareness campaign. So they are using every means. Traditional leaders, we have chiefs and the village headmen. They are actually given, the information, either leaflets or these guidelines, so that they can actually inform their citizens or their subjects in their various respective, traditional areas. So these are some of the, means government is trying to reach out to the rural areas, so that every Jim and Jack, every citizen in Malawi is actually reached out to this information, is aware, so that they can prevent themselves.
Wow, that is amazing. I really like the aspect of the government working with different organization to make sure that every citizen is able to receive the information, so they can be aware on how to protect themselves from this silent killer. So this is really awesome. I'm really liking that. And I believe that, in a situation like that, we as third world countries really need to, use each other's best practices to help, to help one another in what's going on, because in light of this, we have the lack of infrastructure, but we also have certain best practice that can help every citizen, and something that one citizen from one part of the world has not thought about is a process that they can also apply for their particular, region, to help with this, pandemic. And I really like the concept that you guys are using. The GDP of Malawi is $7.5 billion a year. What are the strategies that the government will use to pull through to ensure that their GDP doesn't drop any lower or stay out of stabilization in light of this pandemic?
Let me start by saying that the impact of coronavirus is actually, Malawi, we are feeling it. Although, as you are aware, that Malawi is an agro-based economy, and our economy is mostly dependent on agriculture performance. Agriculture actually contributes to mostly close to 30% or 3% of the GDP. So any serious, impact on agriculture affect, the performance, the economic performance of Malawi. And Malawi depends on rain-fed agriculture mostly. There's little irrigation going on, but almost 70% of our production is from rain-fed, and we have one rain season. This year, the season, the agriculture season, which is just passing, we had a very good rain season, and to the extent that we have actually a good crop, and as such, the impact of coronavirus is going to affect, yes, because there are certain areas which we may not perform very well, but because of the good seasons, Malawi agriculture has actually this year seen that the production is at least is good so far. So the shocks emanating from the COVID-19, while they may be negative in the health sector, and but I think it may not weigh heavily on our economy, especially in terms of production of our farm produce. But also coupled by the approval by the World Bank and IMF to loan Malawi government, $37 million from World Bank, $37 million from World Bank, and $91 million from IMF to support the Malawi government in the fight against, coronavirus, but at the same time to, to balance, is the, to actually to help in balancing its payments, which Malawi has actually forecasted a deficit. I think we'll see at least the country managing, is, the fight against this pandemic, but also economically push forward. You have already stated that our GDP is 7 billion US dollars, and the projection from the economists is that this year we are going to experience a decline in growth for many reasons, because there's very little activity, economic activity going on with the lockdown, the closure of borders, shutdown of airports, and there's very little traffic coming into the country and going out. So we are projecting a 3.2 growth this year from 5.1, which was last year. And we are seeing that the major sufferer in our economic activity, travel and tourism, because with the closure of, borders, there's very little, activity going on in tourism, which actually our tourism contributes about 7%. So that is going to affect significantly. So I would say that Malawi government has put in place, a number of, activities to make sure that the manufacturing, especially the small and medium business, entities, they are continuing, manufacturing and also supplying, needed, goods and services to the, market. So that's what I would say. But also one worrisome shock could emanate from, from government overspending, because with the coronavirus, government has actually embarked on unbudgeted expenses. Yes, we have a budget on healthy, services, but this is demanding a lot on the budget. So we are going to see that the budget is going to be overstretched because of the pandemic. But with the support from the IMF and World Bank, I think we'll manage to cushion. But I know it's not enough to actually cushion and also recover at the same time.
Usually it's a lot of work and a lot of strategic planning. So I foresee in the months and even in the years to come, we will be strategically in a position to really plan strategically to, bring the economy to somewhat, stabilization. That's what I see. What are you foreseeing, Ambassador?
Yes, I think you have said it very well, because, as you are quite aware, Malawi is amongst the poor, by classification of World Bank, is a poor nation, and it takes, if the bigger countries, like with the large economy like US and the European countries, we have actually seen that they're struggling. A country like Malawi is really, struggling. But we thank our cooperating partners, development partners, both multilateral as well as bilateral, partners, for their support. They're supporting. Many have actually pledged to help us. But on our own, I think we'll try to put in place whatever means we can to help actually pull out of this. So every jib and jack in Malawi is actually working hard. And the most vulnerable, population, especially the rural communities who are very vulnerable, who depend on agriculture. Malawi government is made sure that whatever they have produced, the surplus, they have to sell. And Malawi government has put in place, funds to enable the public institution that actually buy produce from smallholder farmers to actually buy all that surplus crop for storage, but at the same time to enable the producers some extra cash to help themselves actually handle their needs at domestic level. But as I said, we are looking forward to our cooperating partners to support us.
Very well said. Very well said. I like that. I really like that. And I see that, with the light of pandemic, a lot of different nations, especially the great nations, that's the 5 great powers, has utilized a lot of mode of technology to have school education for the children. And I know that being that we are a third world country, what is being done with the Malawi government to make sure that children are still being educated through this tough time?
Thank you so much. Considering that the nature of this pandemic requires minimizing physical proximity within the population, social distancing. And since the government declared, the country, the national disaster, schools were closed, both in primary and secondary school, as well as the tertiary, colleges were closed. So as we're talking now, students are still at home. But government and the education, experts, they are considering remote option of delivering, education services, which include, use of radios for broadcasting of instructions, especially for early childhood development and the primary school education. While at secondary school level, both radio and online courses are being considered, so that the students, they're given, a calendar is actually given out, telling them which class is going to listen on the radio, at what time, and so forth. Likewise, online for secondary school, those secondary schools that have network access, and also they have the facilities of computers. They can go online. They can have their courses online. But as you are aware, with our limited resources, our capacity for distance learning, especially for basic education, remains inadequate due to lack of needed infrastructure, such as access to internet, because there are certain areas in the country which do not access internet. And also some families, especially in the rural areas, they don't have a television or radio at household level. But at the same time, inadequate teaching and learning materials which learners can borrow and carry home. So when you look at that, there's serious challenge on a remote, provision of, education or learning services. But as I said, government is putting in place. In certain areas, government came up with, what we call telecenters. So these telecenters might be used in those places because telecenters, they have access to internet, but also there are televisions, facilities there. So where there are these health centers, the, the the public can use these public facilities. Those schools that may not have internet, but children can listen to radios. Then government can provide, is going to provide radios as well, in certain instances television, so that the children can still access these facilities in their respective home areas at a very controlled level, so that the guidelines that were put in place to ensure that there is minimal uh, infection, where this social distancing, they will still practice those. But those families that have facilities at household level, then they are going to actually access these lessons at their home places.
Wow, many challenges. It's many challenges when it comes to the third world countries. And this is where we as global citizens has to come together to see what infrastructure that we can put together as global citizens to make sure that every global citizen children are educated correctly and they have access to educations, and that they will not be left behind, because we have to utilize the resources. And this is where the natives and the diaspora has to come together to say, okay, we going to put our resources together to make sure that there is several tele stations and lab station computer stations that will allow a group of 10 kids to come in at a different time, so they can access learning, because learning is what's necessary for the future generation that's going to take over for us in the near future. So it's really crucial. And just hearing what you're saying, one of the partnering countries, which is Colombia, they use the radio to do their educations, and they also facing the same challenge. So it means that it's not just one part of the world, but it's all the third world countries facing the same issue. So it has to come together where the different part of the world and those decisions makers have some conversation to collaborate their resources together to make sure every citizen children has access to education. How do you feel about what I just said right now?
I think you've said it. I want to agree with you. I think we are in a global village, and we need to work as as one unit. Although we are continuing to operate as individuals, I'm looking at one element of great importance which Malawi has to use is the diaspora, because the diaspora, there are quite a good number of Malawians across the globe. They are here in the US, in Europe, quite a number of them in various fields. We need to tap. I know countries that have actually benefited from this diaspora, and they're doing extremely well in Africa. So we need to actually tap. And I'm pleased to say here that the group in the US, they are actually coming together. They are coming together. They are coming up with programs to raise funds as Malay diasporas to support the efforts that are actually being done in Malawi by government and the other stakeholders in the fight against coronavirus. So they have given themselves a target so that they can actually support, especially if they want to raise money to help in procuring PPE equipment, so that those front line workers can be protected. So I'm looking at diaspora as a very important element in a country. So in the same vein, the same diaspora can also help in helping in education system with the internet. Now, some of the uh, uh, members of the diaspora can provide services from distant land to Malawi. Besides providing resources like finances or materials, they can also provide the actual teaching uh, service online. So I look at diaspora of the nation to be very critical, but also not only Malay diaspora, but if we can actually integrate our regions like Southern Africa, we can also benefit from the other countries if we can connect. Like if we are interconnecting countries on electricity, water, why can't we interconnect on things like provision of learning on from one country to the other. So we need to integrate, and also we need to work as one group of people, because if we are a global village, we can actually help as a community, as an international community, as one, and they actually sort out. Actually, this pandemic is telling us that if we want to actually see our world actually progressing well, we need to help each other. We need to share whatever we have as human beings, because one part of the globe affected, it will definitely affect. Look at this pandemic. It started from one quarter of the globe, but today each and every country is actually affected by this. So I think it's high time nations have decided to hold each other. Those with uh, uh, strong economic muscles, they should actually help to walk those with the uh, fragile economic infrastructure. That's what I would say.
Yes, very well said, because this battle here, which what Trump, President Trump so nicely called it the silent killer, is that we cannot do this alone. Every, nation needs to come together. And then not only that, the third world nations really need to have a true unity together, a real sense of united nation, where they really talk about how can we solve this necessity in this country, in that country. This is my resource, this is your resource, let's put it together so we can get this done. Because this pandemic is a teaching moment where it's either that we work together collectively to be in the forefront, or we stay individualized nation. And then when this pandemic is now over, we have not achieved anything. So every elected official, every head of state need to begin to collaborate and really needs to think in a different mindset that's going to help to propel the lower infrastructure countries, when this said and done with this pandemic, that we also have a sit at the table to make decision, just like the other five powers of the nations. That's the teaching moment that I'm getting from this pandemic. And I hope that, Honorable, that you're utilizing this time to calibrate it, to rejuvenate, and to synchronize different concepts that's going to help nations like yourself in other part of the world. Because guess what, Africa and the Caribbeans are one, so they need to begin to have conversation to really help one another out in their resources. And I believe that's the way that we will have a sit at the table when that time comes.
Sure. I think the pandemic is a wake-up call for
Mm-hmm.
uh, politicians, even the the gurus on the comments to start, looking outside the box. They should start looking beyond the borders of their countries. This is the time to see how we can make each and every part of the country accessible, uh, and also each and every resources accessible so that we we share, because the creator, when he created this world, it had no boundaries. It was boundaryless, without boundaries. But the creator had put enough resources to take care of every person on planet Earth. Enough uh, Arab land, enough minerals to make people happy, everything. But I think the boundaries are the ones that have actually caused some of the problems. But the coming in of this pandemic, I think it is telling us that we have to work as people of this Mother Earth, and we start collaborating. Actually, I'm seeing a lot of collaboration now than before. During this, pandemic, you find various economic and commerce groupings. They are bringing, different, players on panels to discuss what should be done. And almost at these, panels, at this, forum, we are seeing that, we are hearing that we must work as a team, economically, socially, politically. We need to work because this particular pandemic is an enemy you cannot see, and we have to fight it and win. So I believe that by the time the pandemic is over, there will be a lot of reason in in our leaders, in us as leaders, to make sure that we work as one community. The boundaries, we will continue to, because we're sovereign, but they should not actually uh, be the stumbling blocks for effective collaboration and effective partnering. So I'm an advocate for uh, uh, collaboration beyond our borders in whatever area, health, education. We need to collaborate and support each other, because, as I said earlier on, the resources we have in this world are enough for everybody. The knowledge people have is enough. A lot of knowledge of people, they are in one corner of the world, but they can actually help and to sort out the problems of the globe. So that's why we need to work as one community.
Very well said, Ambassador. Very well said. And also that brings me to a very important question. What is the call to action for now for Malawi as the ambassador for Malawi to the United States of America? So what is your call of action to the diaspora as well as to the global citizen, which is all the 96 countries we have in the world?
Malawi, as a nation, as a country, as the territorial area and whatever resources we have, it's not a poor piece of land. It has very rich and fertile soils that can produce beautiful crops, any type of crop. It has got beautiful water, lakes, and what have you. But the people of Malawi are poor. And the major call to action is, poverty alleviation, to fight this poverty, to reduce the poverty levels of the people. This has to be coordinated by, strengthening a private sector capacity to create macroeconomic stability. We need to create jobs in Malawi. People have to have, stable income that is going to come in every month. They should be able to buy their whatever they need, and that's the only way when we can say Malawi is on the path of development. We need the chunk of Malawi population is still under poverty line, so we need to plug them out. So we must unlock the potential of the private sector to create productive jobs so that they can increase income of the people, which I think is critical to ensure food security as well. Because those, citizens that are in urban areas, they don't have actually land to produce their food. But if you can create, enough jobs, then that's where we can see people's lives improving. That's why here now I call upon our partners as well as those who have got money to come to Malawi to invest. Malawi is a beautiful country, very peaceful country. Malawi has never experienced any civil unrest. It has been independent for the last 55 years, and it is a peaceful nation. It is actually nicknamed the warm heart of Africa because the people in Malawi are friendly. So I would invite those who have got, capacity, capabilities to come and invest in Malawi. We are opening up. We need power. Energy sector is untapped because the energy sector, what we are able to satisfy the demand, it's only 12% of the demand. And our vision is to actually, by 2030, we want to see almost 30% of the demand is satisfied. So we are looking for those who can come and invest either in hydroelectric, solar. Malawi is in the region where sun is in abundance. Solar power, even wind, they should come so that we increase the capacity of power. But also we want to actually move from exporting commodity, raw products, because currently much of our agriculture exports are raw materials. We want to actually process. So we are inviting those who can come to go into agro-processing. They must come in and invest in agro-processing. We produce quite a number of crops that they can come and produce. So in short, my major call to action is poverty alleviation of the people of Malawi, which can only be done by serious investment in the country. So I'm calling for investment.
Wow, very well said. I really like the way that you're presenting the call of action. It's not just a call of action for unity, but it's a call of action of actually, being able to collectively work together to grow and remove the people from the mindset where they are and bring them to a billionaire mindset. And then also inviting Malawians, friends and friends of Malawi to really invest and to really grow together as one. Very, very, very well said. I really like that. Now, before we go any further, I have one of our person, Miss Kirby, that has a question for you. Let me go ahead on and let her ask the question.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey. Well, this has been a very awesome podcast. I do have one question. So what do you think? I mean, speaking of Malawi and everything, what is your projective? How can I say it? What would be your projective outcome after COVID? Like, what do you see in the future for Malawi?
Um, After COVID, I think life is not going. I mean, business is not going to be as usual. There'll be a change of uh, in many areas. There'll be change in in
Right.
many areas in the health sector. You see, some of the habits we have developed now,
Mm-hmm.
like the washing hands, regular washing of hands,
My camera in the
the
car. I forgot that camera.
the, the hugging. They might go for good because the COVID, I don't think is going to leave us. We might control it, but it is going to be with us for some time. So I'm seeing that some of these, uh, uh, practices which we have introduced, they will still continue to go, and they are going to even improve our health system because by doing what we are doing now, we are not only preventing ourselves from catching COVID alone, but also these other airborne diseases like flu, influenza, what have you. So once this is over, some of these practices will still continue with us, and we are going to experience, if we can maintain some of these things, we are going to improve our health, living. We are going to live. But also, from after this, because we are now learned to work as a global village, I think I will see. I want to see that this continue helping each other so that no country is left behind to actually to multiply this problem, which is a problem of the globe. So I can see that every country, every organization, every gym and judge is going to be, a brother's keeper, so that we see, you know, getting back to business, and also our economy come back to the path of prosperity, because things have actually stopped functioning. The economies are not moving. So we need. I'm actually seeing that after this epidemic, things are going to change for the better. That's my summary.
Does that answer your question, Kirby?
Yes, it does. Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Any more questions for him? You are fine? Okay, so moving forward, I will call Mr. Samuel. He has a question for Honorable.
Thank you.
Yeah, good
Mr.
evening.
Samuel?
Good evening, Ambassador.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is Samuel Yamte, and I'm extremely happy to hear you talking, because that's a really good starting for us here in the diaspora, because we want to work with yours. And like you say, we definitely have the way, we have the ability and the will to help. Just matter of cooperating, and matter of collaborating, and knowing that if we come there, we will be used. We use our value. Because personally, I'm here in the US for 36 years. We learn a lot and have a lot for Africa. So I'm extremely happy to now to see you telling us what you're telling us, because you're going to go a long way. That's all what we've been waiting for, and then see how we fit in. That's exactly what we're doing, because staying in a country like the U.S., well, there's no way you can not learn, no way, and everything you see tonight is the only thing that we really appreciate it. And first of all, and then now, and you're a lover. Malawi, as far as Africa, continent, how you are together, because that's the only key now to really create those jobs, not for every African to get a pay, like you say, every month, because that's why all the developed country, that's one day for job, create job from their citizens. That's the main thing. The US, if they don't have job, everybody panic, because that's what sustains the society. And that's why we're expecting you, a leader of African, just to have that in mind, that if we don't, somebody African don't have job, they will resort to violence, to any kind of issue, and won't be this. There'll be no change. So, I'm just want to know what are you are doing to cooperating with the other Africans, so that when you are talk as African, Malawian, I'm from Cameroon originally, but I like to say I'm African. I stop saying that I'm a Cameroonian, because they say they create us in Africa and give us all that latitude that we can be everywhere in Africa, feel like home. So, and I'm trying to understand how you are Malawi, what kind of emphasis is using Africa as a template to develop Malawi. So if you can talk about the effort that you are doing at the regional and the broad African framework, that would be really appreciated. Again, I really appreciate all you say, and I'm hoping that all the other ambassadors we take the time to do the same thing, so we can know exactly what you are need, and let's see how we fit in.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Africa is moving forward. I think by the time we get to 2063, Africa will be a superpower as a continent. Because what is happening in Africa now at regional level, you find we have these 5 regional blocks. You have Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, Central Africa, North Africa, West Africa, these regional blocks. And there's serious integration taking place in these regional blocks. Like I come from, Malawi is in the SADC, Southern African Development Corporation. In SADC, Malawi as a country, when we are actually advertising for possible investors, we are saying they should not look at Malawi population when it comes to the market of whatever that investor is going to produce or supply in Malawi, because the SADC region is the market area, because this regional block has integrated its economic, activity. We have one market, and we have the COMESA, common market for Southern and East Africa, where the population is huge. So the integration is there. And recently, you are aware that African Union, they have introduced what is known as the Africa Free Trade Area, so that an investor can have productive facilities across Africa, and also market across Africa. So Malawi is part of the regional economic bloc of Southern Africa, but also is a full member of African Union, and a signatory to the African Free Trade Area. So we are also, we are seeing our political leaders in Africa, they are actually working towards having a visa-free because currently in Southern Africa, you can travel, all Southern African countries, you can travel to any country without visa. So likewise, we want this to apply to the whole continent. So they are working. Africa is open up, and there are no barriers in form of economic, boundaries. Then definitely we're going to see our people in, because once we have a free flow, free movement, each area will attract, specialists to come and work for it. And also people go to wherever they think they can get the best, for their services. So I can assure you that Africa is moving in the right direction. We are now seeing that our leaders, they're speaking with one voice. But also you can see, as Africa, they have actually agreed that they want to see that each and every country adheres to the democratic, principles that are governing, successful, countries. So each country is a brother's keeper. I think by the time we get to 2063, I'm seeing Africa is going to be a beautiful country, and I would not be surprised to see a lot of people in the diaspora going back to Africa to go and help in actually creating this wealth and the opportunities. So in brief, I would say that Malawi, as a member of African Union, but as also a member of Southern African Development Corporation, we are actually working together with our friends in the continent as well as the region to improve the economic performance of our country.
So again, I'm really grateful for your presence here tonight. And yeah, definitely, I believe you that Africa is, it has a lot of opportunities. It has, everything needed to take off. And we extremely determined to contribute as much as we can. So I'm very happy and hopeful that other ambassador, because mostly in this country, in the US, that other ambassador will be doing exactly what you're doing, because it's like working together that will bring us where we're supposed to do it, not fighting each other, That's all what we need to do, work together. The main way we can get there is to talk. Just got a discuss issue, to talk. And then educating other people, educating mostly us in Africa too, because there's a lot of things that we do that we don't know, and then by educating, we gotta put a really emphasis on educating, because we can't keep blaming each other, but we don't need to educate. So again, we have a lot to offer, and it just matter of knowing what is required, what's needed from whom. Because I'm telling you, I'm saying now, because the education, the internet, the distant learning situation, those are not the things that are difficult. It's extremely easy to implement. So that's why I'm saying we just want to identify the need and the discovery of what you are needing and put resources on it, not necessarily money. The brain, African brain in the US, in the Europe, and everywhere. When they put them together, when you were looking for money, you'll be surprised what we could do. So I don't want to take much of your time. Again, I'm grateful for being part of this, and I love the idea that one day we're gonna be doing Africa like we're doing here, and jump in the car, find ourselves, move everywhere we want to move, and drive everywhere I want to drive, etc. That would be a great. That's a vision that we can do that.
And I can assure you this will be, you know, you will see it not in very far distant future. As you have actually articulated, that what is required is actually political will, determination, talking to each other, because the brains are there. Actually, there's a lot of knowledge from African continent, which is actually in other continents. There's a lot. And with the technology we have now, they don't need to leave this place or wherever they are. We can actually use this knowledge using internet, educate our children, improve our health systems, doing a lot of distant learning. We can use the same. What is required is we must put conducive, facilities, environment, so that people are willing to offer their services, even if going to the extent of providing them free of charge to contribute to their mother continent. So I want to totally agree with you that if we can improve the topic, and I can assure you that's what is happening now in Africa. There's a lot of talking at continental level, at regional level. There's a lot of talking, collaboration, and they are agreeing in a lot of things, because every political leader, they are actually focusing on the 2063. We are tired to be always being classified as a poor continent. We are not a poor continent. We are not a poor continent, because Africa has everything. A lot of resources that are actually being used outside Africa, in Europe, in America, in China, Asia. A lot of that, a lot of those resources are actually coming from Africa. We have unlimited supply from Africa. So why should we continue to be poor when we have everything? So your idea of actually continuing to talking, collaborating, and understanding each other. We must unite, work for common goal and common objective.
Wow, this is really powerful. I'm so super excited about everything that you just said, Honorable. It is really, really important. And at this forefront, we really need to continue to dialogue. We are going to close out the podcast. We would like to ask you if you have any final words that you want to let the audience know, you want to drop into their mind. It is your floor right now. Go ahead and do that before we close out.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, let me say thank you for organizing this, conversation. I've actually enjoyed it. I believe this is not the last one. It's just the beginning of many, because there are so many things that we have to share. What we have tackled today is only a piece of what we wanted to actually share in relation to COVID-19. But there are quite a number of, things we share as Malawi would want to share. My appeal to the the world is all those who think they want to invest in Africa, they should also consider seriously coming to Malawi. Malawi is one of the countries which is actually working very hard to make Malawi an easy to make business area. There's quite a number of reforms Malawi government has actually undertaken to make sure that people who want to invest, they benefit from their investment in Malawi. And you don't need to come to Malawi to partner with anybody if you have one. You can come and open your business as a sole proprietor, or your organization coming there and open. You are allowed. You can choose any sector where you want to invest, and you are at liberty. There is Malawi government has put in place to make sure that all those that are making business in Malawi are protected. They're provided appropriate security for both their business premises as well as at their residences. There is adequate security there, so they should not. But also, there's potential for growth. The market, as I said earlier on, that the market is big. There's Comesa market, which has got over 650 million people, and the SADC, which has got around 260, 300 million people. So the market is huge. They should not look at the size of Malawi, because Malawi is connected to the region, in the southern region. So I would want to invite those who want to come to immigrate. But also, I'm appealing to diaspora from Africa, not only from Malawi, but from Africa. Those that want to explore another area of operation. Malawi is they should not forget, they must come there. And also I appeal to all those in diaspora to support their native countries. I know sometimes people criticize the system of government we have, but I should tell you that Africa is just about 55, 60 years old since they became independent. It's an infant democracy. Most of the democratic activities in Africa they started towards the late 90s. So we are in an infant. We're trying our best. At least most of the, if not all, the African countries, they're conducting their regular elections, and the winners are declared winners and so forth. It will take time, but not too long. But we are getting there, because we have senior brothers who have been in the game, who are helping us to come up with appropriate infrastructures to conduct these businesses. So the African diaspora, please remember to come to Africa. Remember to connect with Africa. Remember to support, not just to criticize, but you should be our advocates. Here, you should speak positive about your countries. You should speak positive about the continent. You should not be the ones actually ridiculing, criticizing, undermining what is happening, because there's no country in the world which has no challenges and weaknesses. But the secret is to actually promote the good side of our continent, the good side of our countries. That's when people are going to be attracted. But if we are going to always write negative about Africa, about Malawi, despite coming from there, we are actually slowing down the process. I'm telling you, there is no country in this country which has no flaws. But the secret of these other countries, they keep undercover their weaknesses and only amplify their strengths. This is what I would appeal to my brothers and sisters in the diaspora, those that are coming from Africa, to actually support their country. They should not be politicians. They should be ambassadors. Let the people out there to be politicians. But here, all our diaspora should be ambassadors promoting the interests of Africa. That's what I would say. Thank you so much.
Wow, nicely done, nicely done. You hear it first in 360-degree lens view with Dr. Marie Asher Baptiste. Again, we thank all the audience for being there. We thank the guests for asking questions, Kirby and Samuel. And again, we would like to thank our sponsor, American Caribbean Chamber of Commerce, for supporting this podcast. And we look forward to have another dialogue again, because it seemed like we're going to need to have a panel to go on and really discuss different situation and what needs to be done moving forward. So we are excited. We thank you, Honorable, and we thank all the guests. Looking forward again to have part 2. Again, everybody, good night. And I am super excited to have you on today, sir.
Thank you so much. And once again, I'm very grateful that you had me today. I wish you a wonderful, evening, but also keep safe during this, difficult time. We need you so that we can continue, working for our respective, region. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night.
Good night.